I've been looking forward to this episode for a while because I know that it is something that's very popular, that we all as cheer parents have a lot of questions about, especially when our kids get to that junior high, that middle school range, and that's all-star cheer versus high school cheer. What are the differences, and can you do both? So I pulled in two experts. They are husband and wife, and these folks know a lot about cheer. Scott and Lauren Borgmier have been involved in the sport for a very long time in multiple ways. Both were athletes, both were college athletes. Scott worked at the Varsity main office. Lauren was a judge. Both were UCA staff. Now together, they coach a team that consistently places in the top of a very competitive division. They've authored 2 children's books about cheer, ABC Cheer With Me and 123 Cheer With Me. They are the hosts of the Mark Thru Podcast, and they spent like all of their kids' nap time with me to talk about cheer. We talked for so much longer than this episode lasted. I'm so grateful for their knowledge and just their willingness to collaborate and share. And they had some answers that blew me away when it comes to high school cheer, all-star cheer, and where they overlap and their ideas about the sport as it moves into the future. So my daughter did do both. She did all-star and high school. I felt like I was a little bit more knowledgeable and involved in the all-star side of things. But they surprised me, Lauren and Scott, when they talked about what they expect from their all-star athletes on the high school team. I kind of assumed that any coach would love to have an all-star athlete on their team, but their answer, it surprised me. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to recognize Prodigy Cheer Apparel for being the sponsor of today's episode. I am wearing one of their shirts. If you are watching on YouTube, it's comfortable. It's super cute. I love their designs. So thank you, Prodigy Cheer Apparel. This episode is also brought to you by the Cheer Collection. So between Prodigy and the Cheer Collection, you're going to be decked out when it's time for competition season. We're almost there. So get your cheer-themed jewelry. It says things like Hit 0 and 2 minutes and 30 seconds. New releases are coming. Go to thecheercollection.com. You can use coupon code CheerMomPod for 10% off your order. All right, let's get into today's episode all about all-star cheerleading, high school cheerleading, and can you do both?
All the moms in the world, let's chat it up. We're talking competitions, uniforms, and all of the above. It's the Cheer Mom, yes, the Cheer Mom Podcast. Cheer Mom, yes, the Cheer Mom Podcast. Cheer Moms, your podcast is on.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, glad we finally get to connect and talk for more than just a minute about Christmas lists and
Yes.
weekends away, traveling nonstop.
I know we like all travel at the same time, but I mean it's sort of like I see you from across the arena or like walking to Disney. It's like, oh hey, okay, we got to go by, and it's nice to be able to like have a conversation.
Exactly.
Yes.
And right now we're all entourage free because you have your crew that you come with and we have our crew that we come with.
Yep.
So it's like that's when we do see each other like, hey, okay.
We're like the line leaders.
Yes, exactly.
I like how you guys call it an entourage. It makes me feel very important. Like you guys are important, but I'm just like I just got to get all these humans to where they need to go, and I don't know where I'm going. Like, which one's the field house again?
So Scott is usually our line leader. I am like all over the place of like, hey, she's not wearing this. Hey, this girl's not doing that. Wait, where's the children? Like, and Scott's like, focus. We're walking this way. Like
this
a
cloud of hairspray.
Keep the legs moving. Keep it moving. Well, and funny, you say that, which one's the field house? I've actually slept in the field house one night while working an event, waiting for results and stuff to come through for the production of the event. So
they let you do that? They let you just sleep there?
I don't think anyone was still there to stop me.
Yeah, nobody's gonna say no.
It's Disney. They don't have like lasers all over the place. Like
No,
surveilling.
it was pretty low key, like, and I just was sleeping on a conference room couch until
You were wearing like your official work stuff, so I'm sure that they were like, "Oh, poor guy."
Yeah, a couple computers laying next to me.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I do have to say I do know the field house, but you get anywhere else, and I'm like, which way is south? Like which arena south? Give me a color, please. What yellow? Got it.
We call it Hogwarts because like when you're back there, you're
like we're going to Gryffindor.
We're like which house am I in, Harry?
Yes. It's a zoo over there, so never mind getting to have any kind of meaningful conversation.
Right.
So happy. Okay, I want to hear all about you guys. Tell us all about you. How have you been in this industry? A long time. And what's your background? How'd you get into doing what you're doing now?
Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Oh, yeah, I'll dive in.
Yeah, you go start.
Yeah, this year now I have breached the 50% mark. I've done cheerleading more than 50% of my life now.
Wow.
So for the last 18 years. So I got roped into a junior year of high school. I was on the dive team. Some of the girls that were on the girls dive team, because we shared the same coach, were like, hey, come to this open gym. We'll teach you how to do a backflip on the ground. I was like, that sounds like a cool trick. And so I went with them. They were also cheerleaders. So they were just going to a normal cheer open gym. And then senior year comes around and one of my friends was a cheerleader and she was like, hey, we got this freshman boy that wants to cheer, but we're kind of unsure because there haven't been guy cheerleaders here in like 20 some years. Do you and some of the other senior guys want to do it and, provide a little support? And I was like, sure, I don't do a fall sport. That sounds fun, as long as it doesn't conflict with my winter sport, which was diving. And so just jumped right in and then got roped into trying out at Kansas. Somebody told me, oh, yeah, you have a backflip, you'll make it. And I was like, I don't know. Those guys are huge. And I'm like 125 pounds. Like, that sounds
soaking
great.
Wet.
Yeah. And
I would love to be 125 pounds.
and so then, tried out and made it. So I was a college cheerleader at that point. And that was definitely not something I planned or dreamed of, but I had always wanted to go to Kansas. I grew up around Kansas basketball. Growing up in Kansas, just KU basketball, you think just the opportunity of being able to be close to it, being able to be on the court and be a part of the games and the game day experience was something that was appealing to me, even though I wasn't super into cheerleading. So it took me a good, first year to figure out, do I want to do this seriously? Do I want to commit all this time and energy to something that I was just doing for fun? And then saw the team go to nationals and I was like, ooh, what's that? And then that was kind of where it started in that off season and fell into it head over heels, open gyms and all the things. So, fast forward towards the end of my time at Kansas, was coming to an end. We competed large co-ed at UCA. I guess at that point I wasn't ready to be done, so I stuck around and I was the assistant coach for the next year and a half. In Memphis, though, at Varsity, that's where kind of my industry knowledge, like we were on staff and everything, and that was great connections and great opportunities. But when I really got into the Varsity office, that was when it kind of really leveled up in terms of the experience and just the exposure to so much of the cheerleading industry, all-star, school, international, fashion, camps.
So Lauren, how did you start in cheer?
Well, I will just say I'm from Western Kansas, so there's not a lot of resources out there as far as cheerleading in general. So I actually started in the gymnastics gym at probably 5, and then heading into middle school, my mom was the middle school cheerleading coach. So my whole life I've watched my mom coach cheerleading, and I'll be honest, middle school cheerleading in Kansas, not super elite, but we were pretty good for our area. So then went into high school. I cheered in high school. And then during my senior year, I would go do my volleyball practice or my basketball practice or my track practice. Yes, I did all of those sports. And I would then drive an hour and a half to Great Bend, Kansas. And I would go stunt and tumble for a couple hours 2 times a week to figure out how to co-ed stunt and to get better at my tumbling. So I did that my entire senior year, cheered my first year at Barton County Community College, really got a taste of competitive college cheerleading. And I will get into Wichita State, but NCA versus UCA are just very different, but I appreciated getting to experience both. Like I didn't make MAT my freshman year, and that was hard for me because my whole life it's been like cheerleading's been very easy up until this point. And then I get into my freshman year of college, and all of these athletes are insanely talented. I mean, they had won nationals for a few years in a row. And so it was cool to just be a part of it. I learned how to be a good alternate, just always there for your teammates, cheering them on, whatever they were doing on the mat. I made sure that I could do at my best ability as an alternate in case my number was called next. So I'm very grateful for that experience. So then fast forward, I hit the end of my freshman year of college, and I was like, oh shoot, I've done it. I have my associate's degree. What am I supposed to do now? So I go to Wichita State because they have a dental hygiene program, and cheered at Wichita State throughout the rest of, my college career. And I got my first head coaching position for a high school in Wichita while I was there. So I was cheering and coaching for Wichita collegiate schools. So first head coaching position, was 19 years old, and also staffing and then also coaching. So there was a lot of cheerleading in my life at that time. Fast forward to the end of all of that, I go to Memphis with Scott. I would do dental hygiene during the week. And then over the weekend, I would travel all over the Mid-South and judge, not just high school, but also all-star. So I loved that experience because I got to sit in a car with some of the most brilliant people in cheerleading, especially on the judging side. And I learned so much. So I judged all-star in high school for 5 years. And then we land in Colorado, and I get a phone call from our athletic director at Douglas County. So here we are going on season 6.
Yeah. Season 6 and a couple of championships.
Yes. So one state last year. We're very, very close this year. A few years ago, we got 3rd at nationals and then 2nd at nationals. And then just to be consistently in top 10, top 5 is something we're very proud of.
Are you looking for a fresh new look for your team this season? Check out Prodigy Cheer Apparel. Work with their dedicated team to create a style that you love. Their team of artists create 100% customizable tees, tanks, practice wear, warm-up gear, bags, accessories, and more. Get your quick quote for pricing at prodigycheerapparel.com. The Cheer Mom podcast is brought to you by the Cheer Collection. If you love your cheerleader and you love beautiful things, then the Cheer Collection is for you. The Cheer Collection has nickel-free, stainless steel jewelry pieces that are made to inspire, with bracelets that say 2 minutes and 30 seconds and necklaces that say hit 0. You will love to wear these pieces, whether you're at a cheer competition or just in your everyday life. Check out thecheercollection.com and enter code CheerMomPod. That's CheerMom, POD, short for podcast, and get 10% off your order today.
So we're just going to keep climbing
this year.
So let's switch gears a little bit here. And so you guys have both been in the all-star world and the high school world. Can you briefly, for those who don't know, maybe they're all high school or they're all all-star, what are the key differences between all-star cheer and high school cheer?
Yeah, I think, just on the surface, it's, club versus school. So it's going to be, private companies, private groups, that are building teams, gyms, however they see fit. And I think that's the beauty of All-Star and of club being called All-Star is you don't necessarily have to have a facility. You can rent a facility if you're a small growing gym and, different things like that. So But I think when it comes down to like, on paper differences, All-Star is very much, year round, where it's kind of like a 12-month sport where, high school, don't get me wrong, it's a very long season, but the season maybe is, 8, 9, or 10 months, depending on, the program or the competitions that your team or area participates in. And then I think the other side of it is going to be like the division aspect, where in high school you're going to join a team and there might be some subtle variations with, we're a large varsity or we're small varsity or we do game day. But where All-Star is different, and I think it's a positive difference, is that there's so many divisions that gyms and athletes can really find a place for themselves that's at their skill level. So that, if somebody is brand new to it and they're 16, there's a place for them. They might not be with their friends that have been doing cheerleading for 10 years, but there's a place for them in the gym. They can all be a part of the same program and wear the same colors and have the same bag. And, and I think that's really powerful for teenagers, for young people. Whereas school, sometimes it's a little bit harder because you're trying to fit, that narrow gap of that skill spot or, what that program is looking for.
That's a great answer. I was sort of expecting like, well, All-Star is spring floor and high school is dead mat, but I really appreciate that. Yeah, that's so true. And there's positives for both, and both offer a range of things for kids as athletes and kids just as people. So when you guys are doing tryouts and you were gearing up right now at the time of this interview, we're gearing up for high school tryouts and there's all this interest and all this buzz. When you guys are looking at high school athletes and placing kids on your team, what are you looking for specifically in a high school cheer athlete?
I think I can speak for both of us when I just say mostly coachability. A lot of kids come in, and if we see that there's like potential, there's a good work ethic, a good attitude, all of that really rolls into just like coachability. Honestly, if like, I know that there's been athletes that have made our varsity team where maybe some parents or just our fans are like scratching their head maybe a little bit, but we can see the potential and what this will do for the athlete. And then I think by the end of the season, everybody's like, yep, that was a good choice. So I wouldn't even throw the word talent in there. If it doesn't really matter for us, as long as you're coachable and you have a good work ethic, we can take you probably as far as you want to go, but it's how far do they want to go?
Yeah. So I see a lot of cheer parents asking about high school and should my all-star athlete do high school, and wouldn't my all-star athlete be a shoo-in on a high school team? What's your answer to that? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a fair question, a fair thought, because I mean, there's a lot of time spent on the mat in all-star, and you're like, well, that should translate to high school, right? They're doing cheerleading still. And I think for the most part, that assumption is valid, I would say, because at the core of it, you're tumbling, you're stunting, your focus on competition, on performing is all going to be the same. Obviously it's a different style, it's a different output. But I think one time I tweeted, just kind of broadly, and I put it out there broadly in advance of, if you have, a standing back handspring or a round off back handspring, you probably can make any high school team, JV or varsity. But if you really want to make a varsity team, a standing tuck is usually where it's at. But then look into college, standing tuck could get you on, a base level, standing tuck, running tuck will get you on a base level cheer team in college. But if you really want to be on a cheer team, you're probably going to need a full at that point. So that's where it kind of levels up. But then it's like, if you really want to be on like a cheer team that like competes or one that you want to be on, you probably need like a 2 to full or, multiple tumbling passes.
A variation of a full is kind of what we've been telling our athletes that are.
So there's kind of a scale related to talent, I would say. So, in terms of specific for all-star parents where kids are, that 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, where they're like looking at, should we get privates for the next 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
Should we,
right.
stay at the gym and stay in our level? Should we push in the off season to level up because that level is more equal to high school cheer? I think those conversations for sure need to happen with the kids, earlier than, I don't think decisions need to be made, but I think the conversations should start earlier. Do you want to do high school cheer? Are your friends thinking about doing high school cheer? Also on the other side, I think, why don't you want to do high school cheer? Because I think a lot of times kids are like, well, that looks different than what I know. So I don't want to go embarrass myself because I know this type of cheerleading. And it's like, sure, it's different, but you're going to have fun. Like,
I think it translates really well, honestly. Because I will say any of our all-star, maybe like heavy all-star kids, like really were in all-star for a majority of their youth and came into high school, I would say a lot of them love the experiences that high school gives them by going to games, being in front of their friends, kind of showing off the tricks they can do. It goes kind of back to that coachability piece though, because I will say the kids that struggle with going from all-star to high school are the ones that are like, well, I can do this on spring floor, I just can't do it on dead. And as a high school coach, that just is like nails on a chalkboard, because to me, it's like, it's your body, it's your skill. You should be able to do it in the grass. Heaven forbid you do it on concrete, but like you should be able to do it on any surface if it's your skill. So I think that is one of those pieces that is the tougher part of being like, oh, well, they don't go on spring floor. And it's like, but you're really good. So you don't need a spring floor. You can do it in your backyard.
I said to add a layer to that onion, and this might be off-putting to some, but I would say the translation from all-star to high school sometimes is the toughest for kids when the lack of technique is there, because high school skills are so much more, I guess, static, less dynamic, where they have to go up, they hit, they come down, where, an all-star skill is going to go up and come sideways and then turn right over. It's a lot more dynamic.
Throw glitter in the air and
exactly. Yeah. Poof of smoke and all the things. So I think that's where the difference lies, and, where kids might struggle, 8th grade to 9th grade, or, 9th grade to 10th grade as they kind of move from JV to varsity, where high school coaches like ourselves are demanding with our technique requests, every time with repetitions, where, they might be used to doing stuff with, athletes who are younger, where their coach might not put as much pressure on them, or, to do it right every time. So I think there's different nuances related to kind of like
a lot of layers,
the coachability, and then like the technique, I think are probably the two that rise to the top.
Got it.
For us, in both good and bad.
So I grew up in high school kind of in the dance world, and I remember the dance/drill team at my high school would salivate, for lack of a better word. They would be so excited to have dancers from private studios trying out for their team. Does that translate into cheer at all? Do you guys get excited about, I hope this all-star athlete tries out for the high school team? Or is it kind of an even playing field?
I'd say yes and no.
It's tough, because also with the rules of high school and like with the state association rules and stuff, like we have to make sure that, like, any interest or excitement we show is internal. We can't
recruit. So it's very hard. Like we had a middle school clinic the other night, and the talent that walked through the door was just like insane. Scott and I were both like, oh my gosh, this is great. But we're like trying to play it cool. And we're just like, hey, if you guys are interested, tryouts are in a couple weeks, blah, blah, blah. But that's as much as we can do. We can't really express how excited we are for some athletes. And some all-star athletes are very exciting. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're interested in high school? That's great. Like, we can do a lot with you. But I can't tell them that, So, but at the same time, we have some gymnasts come in, and they've never cheered a day in their life. And so they're trying all these new things at these clinics. And we're like, wow, that kid is so naturally talented, and she has no idea. So we can't wait to get our hands on that and train and rep and, all those good things. So I'd say yes and no, because then sometimes all-star kids come in at differing levels, and some of those levels lack technique. So we're like, man, we're going to have to do a lot of technique drilling. But I think any athlete that comes through, whether an all-star background or no background at all, is exciting for us. I think fresh blood is exciting for us.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think when we started at County, when we put out the tryout list that, the week after we got hired, the tryout form, we maybe had 25 kids show up. We've had very low numbers. I think this is the first year where we've been like, wow, we have a lot. And by a lot, we still mean less than 40. So we're like, oh, wow. But
it's also a small town.
Exactly. And I think that's where we do get excited, is that we know that the small town we are in, the 2 high school town we are in, is growing.
Yeah.
And, for the last 5 to 10 years, families have been moving. And, typically, you're somebody with, older kids. I know with our younger kids, we'd move with younger kids, but as they get older, we wouldn't move with older kids. So we're kind of now in year 6 seeing some of that trend of all the people moving to Castle Rock, and now being in a program and showing that the program's stable and everything like that. We're just excited because they're building new schools and they're building new developments in every direction of the town both of the schools are in, and so it's awesome to see. So like Lauren said, just the kids that sign up, sometimes they say, we ask on the form, what's your prior experience? And they're like, well, I did Pee-wee cheerleading in 2nd grade, and I did a gymnastics class in 4th and 5th grade. Yeah. But otherwise, that's it. And we're like, see you at tryouts. We're so excited to meet you.
Just we really are excited for whatever walks.
That's awesome.
Because we have an incredible coaching staff. And so I know more than half of our JV last year started with 0 tumbling, 0 stunting. And by the end of the season, they're all now working on running tucks. And that's all on account of our coaches. Our coaches are incredible.
Standing back handspring, standing tucks as a squad and 1 JV state. It was just wild. They did.
That's so cool. And that's so encouraging to hear. Because it doesn't matter what your experience level is. There's a place there. You talk about there's a place for everyone in All-Star, but it sounds like there's really potential for a place for everyone in school cheer.
Totally. Absolutely.
We think so.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's so cool.
I think in our 5 tryouts so far, we have not cut an athlete.
Which some coaches may be like, I don't know, maybe skeptical of that, but
and part of that's due to our lower numbers.
Totally.
But and we could have made cuts and had smaller numbers of our teams and been better. But this is high school cheerleading. How much better are we going to be? We're not trying to fit under a salary cap or the only cap that we really have is the state restriction of how many can compete on a varsity floor, which is 28. So that's way high. So the state allows teams to be big and not have to cut. And then I think the only other cap is uniforms. Your program can only have so many uniforms in existence, because you rotate 3 or 4 at a time. You don't buy new ones every year. So, we probably have, 22 to 26 of every uniform. Yeah. So, so we would love big, massive squads, but like we keep saying, small towns. So we'll take them when we get them. But I think it goes back to what I was talking about earlier. It's just the experience. It's high school sports. That's why we have a varsity and a JV. If you want to be cutthroat on the competition side, aim for varsity, but if you're trying to have fun and be with your friends and be part of something at school, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the JV. And we always talk about it with our coaching friends. We're like, when did JV become a bad word? Because it's like, it's so the kids just think so negatively about it.
They do.
And some of our coach friends have even tried this is our blue squad and our white squad and our red squad.
They really do. It's taboo almost to be like, well, we're on JV. And so we do see people name them a color or this or that. And I think it confuses us because we're like, there is nothing wrong with being on JV. You're still a county cheerleader for us. None of our stuff is labeled. We don't put JV or varsity on anything. if you've made the team, you are a county cheerleader, you're representing your school. It doesn't matter if you're on JV or varsity. But that, I guess that's just us.
I mean, that's us. And we know other people that do it similarly.
Yeah,
We know other people that do it opposite. I think, obviously we're strong advocates for what we do for the kids, but I think this year is a prime example. We had some injuries, and we said to JV girls who are already working on their routine, working on their own skills, and we said, hey, we need you to come to some varsity practices and fill in, and and they said they were ecstatic too, and that's just, I think, the excitement of the two teams and the building of the program
and rewarding growth.
And saying, you've been working hard, this person is not able to, the team needs you, can you step up? And they're ready to, because they've been primed to in all those previous moments.
Super smart, you guys. Love that. Okay, I want to spend the last couple of minutes talking about the possibility of doing both. And I know that this is another thing that it ranges and varies between programs, between schools. So it's almost like this disclaimer, like talk to your coaches and talk to your local programs about what they do. Yeah, like that blinking disclaimer. But and from your perspective, can kids do both all-star and high school, and really what's involved if they can and choose to do both?
So this is kind of a loaded question because things have changed over the years. So I will just start with, yes, you can do both. You need to be ready to communicate. You need to be ready to make both of your teams happy and not let either team suffer. That's the hard part. Mm-hmm. And then I think you as an athlete and maybe a family need to be prepared to be in the car a lot, to be on the go a lot, and to be willing to
eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches a lot.
Right. And then to just, I think to really be prepared to sacrifice a lot of the fun things, like maybe a football game, maybe some time with friends on the weekends. Like, I think that athlete just needs to know what they're sacrificing. And if they are such a hardcore cheerleader that they're willing to do that, by all means.
Yeah.
But I do think after the pandemic, everybody, high school and all-star, have really locked in on we need all of your time. We have 2 years to catch up on. We need to make sure that we prove ourselves. So I will say, not even just speaking for Colorado coaches, but I've talked to coaches in California, coaches in Utah, coaches down in Louisiana. I think there's a little bit of a riff right now of allowing your athletes to do both, because everybody is so hunkered in on we have to catch up type of a mentality.
That and I think the because of the pandemic there was, and all the date changes, and obviously you've been to countless cheer events as we have, they're massive things that take planning years in advance. And so I think with some of the scheduling and the makeup scheduling, some of these events across both all-star and school have shifted. So we're seeing longer seasons of both, and there's a greater overlap in kind of that Venn diagram of their schedules. Yeah. And so I think that is creating a lot of complications for coaches who have to plan, and then the athletes who have to be on the other end of planning, and their schedules and things, and managing that, I guess, that time management for themselves. So I think it is becoming harder. I personally keep asking for some intervention from the governing bodies in the industry to, if we want gyms to be successful and all-star programs to be successful, we want high school to be successful, we want all cheerleading to be successful, we kind of need to get some separation between the two, because otherwise kids are going to start to get too burnt out, and they're going to, not want to do two at a time. I think that there's nothing wrong with, ending your season and going right into a club season, and, maybe they have a little crossover for 2 weeks at the start or at the finish, but right now it's becoming kind of double timing 2 full season sports, and that can be tough for the kid, just mentally, physically, and then as a result they think that they're letting their 2 teams down, and it just can kind of snowball from there. And I think the biggest thing for us is they're kids. We always have to just take a step back and be
Yeah,
like,
they're kids.
anytime it's cheerleading, they're always kids. Like
Yes.
cheerleading isn't an adult sport hardly at all.
Right.
So it's like, okay, yeah, they're kids. They need to just do stuff and have fun and not necessarily do all the cheerleading things us coaches want them to do all the time.
Yeah. I think after this year, and maybe things will change, but our double athletes probably struggled the most this season. I think mentally, I think there was a lot of pressure to do well at the same time. Like, I know a lot of these teams were amping up the same week we had state, and a lot of teams are amping up 2 weeks before we went to nationals. So like, those are like the big times where we do need like the governing bodies to separate things, because as soon as we get home from high school nationals, run with your all-star team. I'm cheering you on the entire way, but up until that point,
we want your focus.
Yeah,
ourselves,
selfishly, we want your focus so we can continue to make our program successful. And I know that's everybody's like desire, right? Everybody wants their programs to be successful, that you don't just do this to be happy about losing, you know? so that I think was, it's the last 2 years I think have been the toughest to be a dual sport. Like,
and
athlete.
we feel for the kids too, because like
yes,
we don't
sure.
we don't want to say, you know, hey, you've done this for 10 years, you've done this, you know, since you were 5, since you were 7, you need to give it up and do our thing exclusively. But you know, at the same time, it's like sometimes they do need that, sometimes they want that, sometimes mom wants that for the budget's sake, you know.
Right.
So I think that there's a ton of different factors in making that decision, if it's a decision at all, if it's a decision to do both. I think it's very, like we keep saying, very nuanced and complicated for each family.
I get being parents of young ones. I selfishly am like, just do high school. You'll do great with just high school. But as our daughters get older, we'll kind of see how our views on it change, and if the governing bodies decide to help everybody out by setting a club season and a high school season, that I think would be the most beneficial, because volleyball has a club season and a high school season. Basketball has a club season and a high school season. So
yeah, you don't see football boys.
You don't see football doing club
season
at the fall. Totally. So we just need a little extra help, because we shouldn't have to be going at each other to fight for these kids' time when the kids want to do both and want to make everybody happy. So
yeah, and I think that's just a symptom of cheerleading being still young. Well, I mean, cheerleading has existed for over 100 years, but cheerleading competitions have only existed for 45 years at the most. And so I think there's just not that much, as as big as cheerleading seems, it's still very small. And so I think everyone has to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the struggle is, and cheerleading's experiencing some of those growing pains in gyms are, now have been around for 10, 15 years. They're finally on their feet. They have good churn with their families and, for tuition. And so now it's at the point where, okay, gyms have to run 12 months out of the year because they're their own entity. But from my point of view as a high school coach, we've rented gym space before with gyms. And I'm like, we would do that, in your off season, so I think that there's some middle ground for everybody to work in where it is doable, and all-star gyms can be successful as teams and financially, and then high school teams can exist and those programs can be successful, and the kids can do both, and then they can go off to college and perform and do great sideline things.
I think that's a good way to put it, though. I think it's a growing pain. I think that's where we're at right now. I think both are doing so phenomenally that it is a growing pain. I think that is exactly where we're at.
To make a change, there's going to have to be a little bit of sacrifice.
Yeah, well, because it just kind of like you said, like these competitions are always, up until the last year or two, always on the same weekends. And so that like NCA is always going to be this weekend, and Daytona is always going to be on this weekend, and Worlds will always be around this time. And that's going to have to change if there's going to be any kind of separation.
Yeah.
And, we'd love to see one college championship, but obviously, you know, the powers that be, that's a huge money loss for them to go from 2 competitions to 1 competition. And so I think that there's opportunity for, you know, regional competitions, because, you know, we only competed once a season as college athletes, and that's still what it is. And it's like, those kids want to do a little bit
Do a
more.
regional, yeah. Well, even on the Netflix show, they were talking about that it's like, you do all of this for like one competition, one time. That's it. They don't have any other opportunity to show what they can do. And I think that's a disservice to those athletes, but it's just a disservice to all of cheerleading too, is
right. We could get to, you know, a Rocky Mountain regional, and we could see all the Colorado, Utah, Wyoming teams compete, and, you know, and then the best of those could still go to Daytona.
But at the same time, as a college athlete, your job is to support other sports. So it is, I think, very hard to be your own team and cheer and do all those things, but you still have to cheer to a football championship, a basketball championship. Like, there's all those other things. So I just think it's a great idea.
It's like, we have to walk a fine line.
Yes,
that's so true.
Yeah,
that's so true. Okay, I want to wrap up with this question, and don't get me wrong, I know that there's a lot of things as a cheer mom that we can do less of. But what do you wish you had more of from cheer parents as coaches?
I think less is more. I mean, we've had some phenomenal cheer parents. Don't get me wrong. Like,
and on a varying scale of hands off to hands on with, you know, with extra hands in the way, not in the way, but in helping.
Yeah. So the biggest thing I would say is when your cheer coaches are hosting like a big event, just if there's not a sign up already, taking almost the duty of being like, okay, I've signed up to do this. I'm going to reach out to 3 other moms and say, hey, you're signing up to do this. We're doing X, Y, and Z to make this happen for our kids. Because as a coach, I don't want to organize and put together like everything we do for our college clinic. I have so many wonderful moms that are like, we have the concession stand handled. Like, just make sure we get the money box from the school. And I'm like, oh, perfect. Thank you. That's amazing.
And they're like, we have registration. We just need your printout.
Yep.
And we're like, oh, okay. Yeah, here you go. Thank you.
So it's really, for me, it's the big events that we host, because, you know, we host the Southern Colorado Regional, and then we also host the Colorado College Recruit Clinic. And so to just have our parents be all hands on deck on making the event happen for the kids, that's so helpful for us.
And then I think on a less physical side, on like the support side of things, so when we came to county, we had just like, you know, the ops manual from the program, you know, that stuff. And one of the things that was already written in there was, parents don't make cheerleading as a punishment. So, you know, if they don't clean their room, or if they, you know, stayed out too late, don't take cheerleading away from them, because that can kind of create a rift in between the coaches, the parent, the athlete, in that triangle. And so at the, you know, the start of every season, we bring that up and we ask our parents, we're like, hey, just, you know, as the year goes, the kids aren't perfect, you know, let us be supporters of you parenting, be supporters of us coaching, you know, don't try to take cheerleading away. It's their job they signed up for. They still need to go do it on their bad days after not getting their other job done.
Take away their iPhone. Take away like their TV or their screen time. Like, don't say, if you don't do this, you're not going to cheer practice. And I don't think a lot of parents do that much anymore, but I will say we have had it happen. And we're like, you didn't listen in the parent meeting. But it's like, cheerleading for so many of these kids is their safe space. It's their safe spot. It's where they go to authentically be themselves. And so that would be on the other side of things, of like, just don't make cheerleading a punishment. Let them go have their safe space. Let them go have their place where they can be authentic and they can be with their friends and have fun.
Because maybe they needed to be at the gym for a couple hours so that they can be nicer at home. Like 100%. Obviously that's a weird dichotomy, but you know, in hearing my 2-year-old banging around upstairs, you know, I'm looking forward to it, but not looking forward to, you know, having those conversations with her as, she grows.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we even had a coach offer, hey, don't take them away from cheer, send them over here and I'll make them clean mats and we'll have them scrubbing toilets and we will take care of that punishment for you.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Happy to help as a coach.
Yeah.
100%, because it does take a village.
Well, thank you guys. I so appreciated our time together. You guys are amazing. Love seeing you at events. How can everyone find you if they want to connect with you, if they want to buy your products, if they want to hear your podcast? Where are all the places that we can find you?
Yeah, so we are under the Mark Thru. That's kind of our social media. That's our business. So that's our podcast, our show. But I'm Coach Scotty B on social media. Lauren is Lauren Borgmier on social media. Our books are ABC Cheer with Me and 1, 2, 3 Cheer with Me. So
1, 2, 3 has an underscore. 1, 2, 3 underscore. Cheer with Me.
Yeah. So yeah, the books are out. We'll ship you the ABC book from this room right here. So yeah, like you said, we're at all the competitions and things. We love cheerleading, so we're just so glad we were able to connect and be part of your show and help amplify cheer a little bit more.
Thank you guys.